Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at the Reliant Robin. Hello and welcome back to Quartzlight. Quartzlight, if you don't know, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars, car brochures, looking back on cars we all remember, then please do consider subscribing. It's all completely free. Anyway, back to today's episode, which was first aired on a Tuesday. We call those episodes Take Two Tuesdays because we look at a brochure that we looked at over 2 years ago when we were first starting the channel. Now we've changed how we do the episodes a bit so we can look at these brochures in a little bit more detail. The brochure chosen today, the Reliant Robin. Yes, the fabulous 1970s Reliant Robin. Anyway, let's put it on the board. We'll talk a bit more about the video that we did originally, how much that sort of made. We'll even talk about figures, and then we'll go into the brochure proper. So here is today's brochure, Robin, a new idea from the ground up. And this was a very new car actually when this brochure came out. This is a very, very early brochure for the Robin. If we just flip it over, and there we go, right at the bottom there, printed in England, September 1973. And that really is a very early date for the Robin. Common knowledge tells us that the Robin was first manufactured in October 73. This, of course, September 73, so a very early brochure. Not sure if this is the first brochure for the Robin. It may be. Let me know if there is an earlier one than this, but yeah, very early on. Of course, this was a direct replacement for the Reliant Regal. And on these early Robins, they were still using a 750cc engine. Around about 1975, that boosted up to 850. So, small engined Robins at this time. Let's move back to the front cover again. But like I said, this is Take Two Tuesday. So we have looked at this brochure before, but like I say, over 2 years ago when, we've got kind of like a little bit better technology to zoom in on the images where we couldn't before. We just quite simply photographed the pages and then talked about them. Here we can actually be a bit more active on the images themselves. But over 2 years ago, the original one of these brochures we looked at got 665 views, which at the time wasn't too bad actually. And then made from then till date $1.88. That's right. So not a huge amount, and you don't get a huge amount for YouTubing. Don't be fooled by that. But like I say, I think it's worth looking at this one again purely because we can kind of like zoom in on these little images better, which we'll do straight away. And here we go, zooming straight in on that lovely image. Unusual wheels on this one, I think you'll note, and very much a very 70s colour. It's delightful. I would love to have one of these actually. Very cute little look with those round headlights, aren't they, on these early ones? And we've even got a little bit of a number plate on there and sort of extra driving lamps. I think this one's really kitted out with all the extras for the brochure. We can even see two mirrors, driver and passenger side, which most cars of this era didn't even have. This really came out at a great time, really. Oil crisis, people really wanted a very fuel efficient car, of course, and this was really good. But I always think one of the great things about the Robin is when we think about the 1970s cars, there's so many fantastic, I think 70s is some of my favourite cars. I really love that era in the 70s. The problem was rust resistance was very poor. Some of the metals that used were extremely poor, so they rotted away in a couple of years. Your brand new car in 2 years had rust on it. Advantage with the Robin, of course, no rust. So in some ways you could argue more advanced than a lot of the cars of the era, but certainly a very interesting car indeed. Strange image though that they've had, the Robin. I know Top Gear really spoilt their image quite a bit, I think. Although I think they're always a little bit of a jokey car, but you know, Top Gear had them falling over at every corner, if you remember. But I just think Top Gear, that sort of era of Top Gear, was more of a sort of comedy program than it was an actual factual motoring program, which I'm pretty sure most of us will know by now. That although I'm still asked today, do these just fall over on the first corner? So that very strange image. Actually, they're very, very stable cars. You'd have a real job to make one of these roll over. Actually, Free Wheels is actually a very stable design, which might come as a surprise for some. Anyway, I don't want to waffle too much. Let's turn to the first page. One thing I should say though, I'm going to do a link to the original brochure from over 2 years ago to this one. Tell me if we're doing better now than then. I know originally we threw out a lot more facts and figures, which I know some people really like that, but let me know anyway in the comment section. Let's turn to page 1. Okay, we turn the page in this really lovely condition. The brochure, like I say, from 1973 is really in lovely condition. Saying here, the whole idea is new. Robin, because this is a new car at the time, and kind of like demonstrating this sort of very simple hatch design. We'll start with the text at the bottom here, and then we'll probably come back to this image. So it starts at the bottom here by saying, somebody once said that all the really great ideas are obvious once they have been pointed out. The idea of Robin is like that. It seems extraordinary that no one should have thought of it before, but nobody did. Robin is an economy saloon estate, the first of its kind, in versatility, in capacity, and above all in economy. Robin is the most practical car on the roads of Britain today. And then, showing the practicality, although, it's not a very large area to put any sort of luggage in there, just lifting that small window, and of course, you would have had to lift the objects quite some way, but nevertheless, it's a nice idea of being able to see inside the vehicle there and that dash, kind of, and also shows us what amazing colours these Robins came in. If we zoom in a little bit further, so there we go, it's the Super Robin, and in fact all the cars shown in this brochure are the Super Robin. Now, I'm not really a Reliant Robin expert, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you can denote a Super Robin by this sort of like black stripe that sort of starts here, goes right round the car like so. So there'll be a stripe on all these models, and it does tell you in the brochure all the models are Super Robins, whether we can see the back or not. The only exception is there's a white example right at the back of this brochure, the last page, that doesn't seem to have the stripe on, looks very sort of poverty spec, so I'm thinking maybe that one's not a Super Robin, but we'll talk about that later on. We turn the page again and it's talking about economy, and one of the nice things about this brochure, and I've tried to pick out some of my favourite brochures actually for Take 2 Tuesday, is the colours on it. So now we've got a green example, and the Robin is in green in the text as well, which is rather lovely. The other thing that's rather nice is they're actually using actual registered cars, so they've got number plates on them as well, which I always think is an interesting idea as well. And of course, because this is the first brochure, they haven't been doctored. And by that I mean sometimes in brochures, when they do a new brochure, they just quite simply change the registration plate to make it look like it's a newer car. Anyway, we'll read the rest of this text, come back to this lovely green Robin. So, a new idea about economy. There is a difference between an economy car and a cheap car. The Robin is an economy car. It is made like a luxury car, hand assembled rather than mass produced, coach built on pressed steel chassis with a long life all alloy 750cc engine and non-rust glass fibre body. That is why it will last. That is why it will keep its value. That is the basic reason why it's a true economy car. But not the only reason, because it has 3 wheels and weighs under 800 weight. It costs only £10 a year to licence. Ordinary cars cost £25. You can get longer tyre life, and you only have 3 tyres to replace anyway. Robin can be driven on a car or motorcycle licence, which obviously is a key point at the time. The engine, being high efficiency, can give you up to 60 miles per gallon. Half a p a mile, maybe for 4 people. And because it has wet liners, which are cheap and simple to replace, the engine never needs reboring. Robin is an economy car because it does not involve you in waste, because the idea behind it is right. So really going on about, the economy of it, both good to refuel or very economical, and also cheap to have in the life of the car, tyres, etc. A licence only £10, and of course being able to drive on a motorcycle licence also brought cars to people who hadn't had cars before. Anyway, let's zoom in on the image. There we see the licence plate again, and of course again we've got mirrors on the driver and passenger door, and we've got these driving lights on as well. More standard wheels you notice on this one now though. But anyway, let's turn to the next page. Just thinking then, just before I do turn the page, I wonder if this junction still exists with this old sign on, because presumably you can actually track down this exact location, although it's a very country, narrow little lane. It might be a huge highway now. Let me know if you know where this is. We turn the page and it's talking about luxury, amazingly enough. Robin, a new idea about luxury. I don't think anyone would really see the Robin now as any sort of a luxury vehicle, but who knows, back then it's probably got some features on there that the ordinary car didn't have back then, but a strange take on it. We'll look at the text to see what it's talking about, then we'll come back to this little interior. So it starts by telling us the passenger compartment is placed in the Robin as though it was slung in a triangle formed by the wheels. We call this the comfort capsule. It gives you a remarkably smooth, well-balanced ride. Inside the Robin is impressive. It is much more spacious than you think it's going to be. Proof again that design is right. And in the Super Robin, it is more than a little luxurious. There is deep pile carpet throughout, body contoured seats with generous upholstery, the trim to tone with the carpets. All is to help to make the going good. You drive without stress. There are fingertip controls, synchromesh on all 4 gears, that's pretty good, and the dashboard instruments read at a glance. There is a full modern safety specification with collapsible steering column and steering wheel with rocker switches. So there is that interior. First thing that I really notice on this is how thin the seats are. I guess to provide enough room for someone to get into the back, maybe. Certainly safety standards have increased hugely since this time. And then we got a little blue example in the back there. We just go right to the background then. We can just about make out this blue example, and I think this is actually a standard. It talks about in this brochure being all these models being supers, but I think they've forgotten about this blue one, and we'll get to the back page. I think that's also a standard Robin as well. No line going down the side, no sort of overriders on the front. Looks like a poverty spec version. And then we get another image of this sort of yellow example with this hatch saying Robin, a new idea about space. Rather nicely showing you there with the seat that folds back to give you a bit more space, and we even get a rather lovely dash shot there as well, but we'll start with the text. It tells you here the Robin's rear window is more than an aid to visibility. It's also a door. The hinges are at the top. This is how you get into the boot. There are 8.5 cubic feet of it, and you load in shopping or luggage just like that. This is Robin as a saloon, but Robin is a saloon estate. Release 2 catches and the whole back seat folds forward, so you have 30 cubic feet of luggage space. Each inch of it easy to see and easy to reach from inside or outside the car. Besides which, you have a glove box and 2 door pockets, and when the back seat is up, a tonneau cover behind it, which incidentally protects the contents of the boot from prying eyes. So there we go, I zoom inside that little hatch, and we're carrying sort of like a picnic basket, although I'm sure we didn't have to fold the seat to put that in there. Bit of a wild claim calling it an estate really, when it's quite an unusual little hatch to try and put things in, but certainly nice to have that folding down seat. And here we have an arm kind of like demonstrating that fold down seat. A very simple affair though, isn't it? It's just quite simply the back folding, and it doesn't look like it folds completely flat either. Look at the dash. Actually quite a few gauges really for what is a budget conscious vehicle. A very typical Reliant R on the steering wheel there, and looks quite nice carpeting as well. Turn the page, another very colourful pink Robin, really demonstrating all those colours you could get, and again the text in pink to match. We'll look at the text and we'll come back to this interesting model. Telling us here, a new idea about style in any company by any standards. Robin is an outstandingly good looking car. And so it should be. It was styled by the Ogle Group body designers for the Scimitar GTE and Bond Bug. It has the same sureness of touch and timeless elegance of line. Arriving by Robin, you'll get more than your share of admiring glances. There are 2 versions, Robin and Super Robin. The car shown in this leaflet is Super Robin, the luxury version. Mechanically, the 2 cars are identical. Both can have as factory fitted options, radio, laminated windscreen, cast alloy wheels and heated rear window. So here is a zoom in on that pink example, or purple. I'm not sure of the colour name for this actually. Would you say that's pink or purple? Either way, it's a very striking 70s colour. Again, this is going to be the Super, as it's told us now, and we've talked about before, all these models in this brochure are the Super, and I think that means it comes with this black line going down the full length. We can have a bit of a better look at that, but there is options on here. It tells us about those options of things like those cast alloy wheels that we can see on here. Doesn't really mention the sort of driving lamps, but I'm sure that must have been some kind of option as well though. And 2 door mirrors, maybe that was standard on the Super, I'm not sure. But when you think about things like how this is specs, you could almost imagine sort of like that claim for luxury. Certainly a lot more than sort of like your base model Escort would have come with. Heck, we even come with body coloured bumpers, even though yeah, it's just part of the mould really, but still quite a striking car. Let's just move to the other images, which I think are going to show more of the sort of factory fitted options. It does indeed show us that optional Philips radio that you can actually have put in here. And again, the yellow example is shown to show the other optional piece of equipment, that heated rear window, and sort of like that sort of quite crude looking thin piece of cabling to go to the heated rear window. That does look quite fragile. I'm sure that broke after a few goes of opening that glass up. And then we just got this one strut opening this window up. You can see the hinges at the top there. Again, quite fragile looking hinges, although I'm sure the glass section didn't weigh that much, but still. It's a lot of strain on glass fibre when you put hinges on there, so I'm wondering how well they held up as well. And then we get to the back page, but the back page is also equally interesting, showing another 2 Robins in 2 different colours again. Now, even though the brochure proclaims that there isn't any other model but the Super shown in this brochure, I think they've almost like forgotten about this final picture, which is amazing. I think this is the standard Robin, purely because it doesn't have that stripe on. I would say that's that would really denote that this is the base model. We also got no mirrors on either door on this example. Basic wheels. So I'm thinking, even though it says it's showing all supers, I think they forgot about this one on the back page. And then we'll move on to the orange example. And then the orange example in the foreground with the stripe. If I had to guess, I would say that's a Super Robin, and the one at the back is the standard Robin personally. We've even got some nice overriders at the front of this model as well, which looks superb. And of course we've got the mirrors, and that's certainly what would have been an optional extra, those alloy wheels. I was trying to zoom in to see if we could make out that license plate, but sadly we can't. But again, we've got these extra sort of driving lights on there as well. Just look at the final text there, the Reliant Motor Company Limited, Tamworth, Shropshire. Registration number on there as well. The specification is applicable to vehicles manufactured at data printing. Pricing specifications are liable to alteration subsequently without notice, and of course that printed in England September 1973, making this a very early Robin brochure. And there we go, we'll end there with this front cover shot of this rather lovely Reliant Robin. We always kind of like, still today, you know, kind of like laugh at this car, but really it was actually a very successful car for Reliant in the 70s, and in the 70s it actually made a great deal of sense. I've never driven one, sadly. I would love to, but I always think it's another of those very fascinating economy cars really from the 70s, which I always really love. I can guarantee it won't fall over on the first corner though. But thank you so much for watching today. I'm going to add a couple of boxes on here. One's going to be for the original brochure of this, so you can have a look at that, see if we have improved any, and we'll put some other brochure on there as well for you to click on. But please do consider subscribing. It is completely free. It doesn't cost you a penny to subscribe. Helps you find the channel, and also helps you look at all the videos we've got. We've got over 500 videos on here of various different car brochures and a wide variety of cars. We don't just stick to one subject. We kind of like cover everything, but they tend to be ordinary cars. That's kind of like our premise. We don't really tend to look at supercars or luxury cars, although we've touched on Daimler a little bit on there as well, but generally the ordinary car is what we look at. But thank you so much for watching today. The other thing you can actually become a member for a very small fee, although I will say we're not giving a great deal for those who are members, but we appreciate you because you really do support the channel and help us produce so many videos. We do produce a lot of videos, 5 videos a week, which is actually quite a lot of work, so we do appreciate you becoming a member. Eventually, when we get more members though, we'll start doing extra sort of behind the scenes clips, maybe extra short videos. We'll see, but we've only got a very small member count at the moment. But thank you for those who have become both a subscriber and a member. We'll end by saying thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Please do come back soon. Take care, of course, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.